Notre Dame is set to hit the road to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks for the first time in school history, and already both teams find themselves at a crossroads during the early portion of the 2025 season. So, who's going to come out on top? My full preview and prediction is coming right up.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum, producer at Fox Sports, and I've been covering the Irish since 2020. It is Wednesday, September 24th, and thanks as always for making this your first watch or listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And before we dive in, please take a second to subscribe on YouTube or follow along on your preferred podcast platform. I really would appreciate it. Let's get right into it. Fresh off securing their first win of the season, the Irish will look to notch their first road win when they travel to Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks this Saturday to kick off what might be the best Saturday slate in college football this year. And with so many marquee matchups on tap, Notre Dame has the chance to set the tone for the entire day and make a statement if they can walk into Fayetteville and take care of business in the early window. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the matchup where I break down my scouting report of the Razorbacks in all three phases. I'm going to share my keys to the game for the Irish, and we will wrap things up with my predictions. But here's the bottom line. This is a crossroads game. Both programs are trying to find their footing after gut-wrenching losses at the start of the year, and the result in this game is going to reshape the course of their seasons. The loser risks falling into a spiral that could define the year for all the wrong reasons, while the winner seizes a lifeline, basically, a chance to flip the narrative, reignite some belief, and hopefully launch into October with some real momentum, and that is what makes Saturday so critical. And we're going to find out what happens at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. local time in Reynolds Razorback Stadium. The game will air on ABC with Dave Pasch and Dusty Dvorak on the call. I am hesitant to even mention the weather after jinxing it last week. Last week I came on during the preview of the Purdue game and I said, the weather forecast looks perfect in South Bend. And then it was not perfect. As a matter of fact, we had a 2-hour rain delay that was pretty miserable. But as of now, the forecast is calling for a picture-perfect day in Fayetteville, sunny skies and a high of 82 degrees. And like I said earlier, this is the first ever meeting between the two programs. They were scheduled to face off in South Bend in 2020, but that game got canceled because of the pandemic. Sam Pittman is the head coach of the Razorbacks, and he is in his 6th year at the helm. He took over in 2020 and has a career record of 32-33. His best season came in 2021 when Arkansas finished 9-4, but after going just 11-14 over the past 2 seasons, his seat was definitely warm coming into the year, and after they started off 2-2, it hasn't gotten any cooler. As a matter of fact, it has gotten a little bit hotter. So Arkansas started off the season by beating up on 2 bad teams. They smoked Alabama A&M and the Fighting Butch Jones of Arkansas State. Then they lost a very close game against Ole Miss in their first SEC matchup of the season. That was an awesome game if you had a chance to catch that one. Arkansas was down 41-28 in the fourth quarter. Then they went on a 12-play touchdown drive to cut the deficit to 6 with just over 4 minutes left. Then their defense forced a 3-and-out, and they were driving down the field with a chance to win. But their wide receiver fumbled a bubble screen around the Ole Miss 20-yard line. So that was pretty painful. Then last week against Memphis, Arkansas jumped out to a 28-10 lead in the first half. But then the Memphis Tigers came all the way back and scored the go-ahead touchdown on a 64-yard run by Sutton Smith. But Arkansas got the ball back, and they drove all the way down the field with a chance to win it on a field goal. As a matter of fact, there were people calling for Memphis to just let them score so that they would get the ball back and have their own opportunity to win the game on offense. But the Memphis defense did the exact opposite. They forced a turnover. They recovered a fumble inside their own 10-yard line, and Arkansas lost 32-31. So even though Arkansas is 2-2, they very well could be 4-0 if a couple plays had gone their way, and you could honestly say the same thing about Notre Dame. They're really only 4 points away from being 3-0, a top 5 team in the country, but it seems like up to this point, none of the plays had gone the way of either of these two teams. That's why Arkansas is 2-2, and that's why Notre Dame is 1-2. And odds makers opened Notre Dame as 6.5-point favorites on FanDuel, but that line has already dropped to 4.5. The over-under is set at a hefty 64.5. So Vegas is essentially projecting a 34-30 Irish win. Frankly, given how both offenses have looked and how terrible the defenses have been, that total might even be a little conservative. And as it pertains to the spread, I would not be surprised if the line drops to 3.5 by the time you're watching or listening to this. That's just the way things have been trending in the betting market all week. But when I look at this game, I think it comes down to one thing. This game is about culture. At the heart of this matchup, it's not about X's and O's. It's not even really about the Jimmies and Joes necessarily. It's about culture. And yes, I know the term culture is the most overused trope in college football. It looks great on a poster, it looks great on a t-shirt, but is it real? Sometimes no. Like, I don't think that the Kentucky football culture under Mark Stoops, not to give them a stray shot, but I'm sure that their team preaches a strong culture. It's not that great. But in others, it's absolutely real, and it is extremely important. Notre Dame's culture under Marcus Freeman has become one of the defining traits of his program. Ask anyone around college football, players, coaches, recruits, and they're all going to tell you that Notre Dame is one of the best locker room environments in the country. It's rooted in accountability, toughness, and the real belief that you represent the University of Notre Dame, not just yourselves and not just the football team. Notre Dame does actually blend the football team with the university, and as much as they try to, at least in the modern era of NIL and stuff, where all the student athletes are professionals at this point in time. But that kind of thing doesn't just happen overnight, right? And Freeman didn't do it by himself. Notre Dame had a strong locker room culture under Brian Kelly, as much as some Notre Dame fans might hate to admit it. But then Marcus Freeman came in and he enhanced it. I firmly believe that the team's culture and resolve last year is a big reason why they were able to bounce back from the loss to Northern Illinois, win 13 straight games, and make the national championship. Because let's face it, there were other teams around the country who had a little bit more raw talent than Notre Dame did last year, but they didn't make it quite as far. And Freeman has been intentional about building a strong culture and an offensive and defensive line-driven program since the moment he got the job. And it's one of the biggest reasons Notre Dame has been able to recruit at a high level despite all the things that they have to deal with recruiting players to South Bend, Indiana, and at a place as academically inclined as Notre Dame. But they've also been able to stay competitive on the national stage. But here's the thing. Culture is only proven when it's tested. And right now, after a 1-2 start, it is being tested in a way that, frankly, none of us expected it would, at least not at this point in the season. Anyone can talk about having a great culture when you're winning. Anyone can say the right things in the offseason or puff their chest out after blowing out a garbage team at home. The real measure of culture comes in moments like this when your backs are against the wall, the season is hanging in the balance, and you're heading into a hostile SEC environment where the other team is desperate for a win. That is why Saturday is so important. For Notre Dame, it's about proving that they have what it takes to hold up under the pressure, and they really are as good as we thought they could be at the start of the season. Arkansas, meanwhile, is in a completely different place as a program. They don't have Notre Dame's stability, tradition, or recent success. I mean, they haven't won double-digit games since 2011, and nobody is confusing this Razorbacks team for a playoff contender. But they do have talent. There are legitimate SEC athletes on the roster, and if they're able to put it together for 4 quarters, they are dangerous. And for Arkansas, beating Notre Dame would be massive. This is not just another game for them. It's the kind of program-defining win that could save Sam Pittman's job and shift the narrative around their entire season. That desperation can be powerful. When a team is fighting for its coach, when they know that jobs are on the line, you get one of 2 outcomes. Either they fold under the weight of it all, or they come out swinging, they're pissed off, they have nothing to lose, and they play their best football of the season. That is the danger for Notre Dame. They're not necessarily walking into a dead team, or at least I don't think they are. They're walking into a desperate one. So this game becomes a clash of identities. On one side, Notre Dame has a culture built on consistency and belief that should allow them to block out the noise and perform at a really high level. But on the other, Arkansas has a program that's cornered that might respond with a level of urgency and fight that they haven't necessarily shown yet, or they might let it unravel them. And that's why I lean Notre Dame here. I trust Marcus Freeman to have his team ready and rise to the occasion and prove that they are far better than what we've seen so far, specifically on the defense. If Notre Dame's culture and resolve is as strong as advertised, they're going to be able to figure out the mistakes on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to come together and they're going to take a legitimate step forward, which will allow them to walk out of Fayetteville with a win. But if Arkansas's desperation turns into belief, if it becomes contagious in that stadium, then the Irish are going to be in for a fight. Either way, we're going to get an answer. By Saturday afternoon, we're going to know a lot more about both programs. Whether Notre Dame can still make the run we thought was possible before the season started, and whether Arkansas has enough left to salvage its season and maybe even save its head coach. All right, now that the stage is set, let's dive into the matchup. Coming up next, I'll break down Arkansas on both sides of the ball and share my keys to the game for Notre Dame. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you could drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. One of my favorite things about Monarch is you can identify all sorts of things you might miss, like maybe you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch also helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, let's dive into the scouting report, and I want to start off by looking at Arkansas's offense going up against Notre Dame's defense, because we as Notre Dame fans, we can't talk enough about the demise of the Notre Dame defense, at least so far this season. But before we get to that, let's talk about the Razorbacks offensive coordinator, Bobby Petrino. Yes, that same Bobby P is back in Fayetteville over a decade since his infamous exit as a head coach. And that image of him at the press conference after his motorcycle accident, when he had the neck brace on and his face was all beat up, and then all the reports came out about the affair he was having. I think it was an intern or something like that. Very tough time for Bobby Petrino, right? But was he really in a motorcycle accident, or did his mistress's boyfriend find out about the affair and beat the hell out of him? I don't know the answer. It's one of the great mysteries in college football lore. But anyway, even though Bobby Petrino might not be the best guy, I think that's safe to say based on his track record, that man can design an offense. And last year, he elevated the Razorback offense from 26 points per game to 31 with limited weapons. And this year, he basically had to rebuild the unit through the portal after they lost virtually their entire wide receiver room, their starting tight end, and their leading rusher. But the player to know is number 10, quarterback Taylon Green. This dude's a stud. There's no other way around it. He's 6'6", 224 pounds, and is a legit dual threat. Arguably one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the entire country. This year, he's got a 64.3 completion percentage. He's already thrown for nearly 1,200 passing yards. He has 12 touchdowns through the air to 4 interceptions, and he's also added 360 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. He's averaging 8.2 yards per carry as a quarterback. That is damn good. That is what Jeremiah Love averaged last week against Purdue. That's what he's doing as a quarterback, and you have to take into account sacks, so he's averaging more in true carries. Everything in this Arkansas offense revolves around him, and he is very dangerous. He is a great passer. He's got a big-time arm, and he's their leading rusher. When he's good, he looks like a high-end NFL draft pick. But when it's bad, it's really bad. and it was really bad at different moments last year. He was sacked 32 times in 2024, and he fumbled 12 times, which is more than any Power 4 quarterback, although he has not fumbled yet this season. But he's not the only weapon they have on offense. They also have running back Mike Washington, number 4. He's a senior, big body running back, 6'2", 223 pounds. He actually transferred from New Mexico State, and he is having a breakout season this year with the Razorbacks. He has 330 rush yards on the year, and he is averaging 7.2 yards per carry. So you've got Taylon Green, who's their leading rusher, with 8.2 yards per carry, and then Mike Washington Jr., the running back, he is not far behind him, averaging 7.2 yards per carry. Washington Jr. already has 4 touchdowns. He's very explosive, had a long of 47 against Ole Miss, and also added a 35-yard reception as well. But in the throw game, as John Bryce from Football Scoop likes to say, their wide receiver number 1 is number 9, Omega Blake. He has 24 receptions on the year, 326 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. He actually started out his career at South Carolina with the Gamecocks. Then he transferred to Charlotte, which is where he played last season, had a breakout season there, and then he transferred to Arkansas, and he is having a big-time season for the Razorbacks already. But they have a bunch of talented pass catchers. They also have 2 tight ends who are very dynamic. Jaden Platt is number 83. He has 8 receptions for 143 yards. And then Rohan Jones, number 88. Listen to this stat. He has 5 receptions on the year for 197 yards. He is averaging 39 yards per reception, and he already has 2 touchdowns. So they have a bunch of different guys to get the ball to on the perimeter. And then on the offensive line, keep an eye out for number 51. That is Corey Robinson II. He is the highest graded offensive lineman on the team, according to Pro Football Focus. When you look at this offense, their biggest strength is that they are very balanced. They're 10th nationally in yards per rush, averaging 6.6 yards per carry. They're also 10th in yards per completion. They're very efficient on third down. They convert 62% of the time. That is top 10 in the country as well. And honestly, if you just look at the stats across the board, they are top 10 in yards per game as well, including yards per play and total touchdowns. Not to mention the fact that they're extremely explosive. They have had 9 runs go over 20 yards or more, and they have had 10 completions that have gone for 30-plus yards. Memphis and Ole Miss are not terrible on defense either, so it's not like they're lighting up bad defenses. Memphis is top 30 in the country in scoring, and Ole Miss isn't that far behind at 42. Their biggest weakness on the offensive side of the ball, they turn the ball over too much. I already talked about Taylon Green's fumbles last year. Well, fumbles have not been an issue for him this year, but he's already thrown 4 interceptions, which ranks 109th in the country. And then tack on the 2 fumbles that this team has lost, 2 very loud fumbles. Like I mentioned earlier, 2 games effectively flipped because they fumbled the ball late in the game. That's 6 turnovers through 4 games. That's not all that great. So the keys for Notre Dame's defense, pretty simple. Number 1, create turnovers. Arkansas is going to put up points in this Notre Dame defense. There is no going around it. Even if the Irish defense is much better this week, they have not shown anything that would lead me to believe that they're just going to go out there and stifle Arkansas on offense. The best way to beat them is to cause turnovers and give your offense more possessions. Notre Dame has not been very effective at creating takeaways this year. Leonard Moore had that incredible interception against Texas A&M. Then they had 2 against Purdue, although Dallas Golden's came pretty late. That was effectively garbage time. But if they're going to create turnovers on Taylon Green, they need to get after him, which leads me to my second key for the Notre Dame defense. Be aggressive. Get after the quarterback, because for as bad as the Notre Dame secondary has looked at times, and it looked rough against Purdue when they were starting true freshmen Mark Zachary and Dallas Golden, and they didn't have their leader at safety, Adon Schuler, throughout the first half. The biggest issue facing the Irish defense is their complete inability to generate pressure on the quarterback. The edge rushers have been disappointing this season. I expected a little bit more from Bryce Young. Jordan Botello is still kind of coming back to health, but they're still talented, and Al Golden was able to create a ton of havoc without ever having an elite pass rusher at Notre Dame. The Irish blitzed 6 total times against Purdue. 6. I just don't get it. And they only blitzed on 35% of 40 total dropbacks against Texas A&M. And then when they did blitz, they held Marcel Reed to a 38% completion percentage. And this is the biggest difference between Chris Ash and Al Golden as defensive coordinator. Golden was able to create chaos with his scheme, and Ash just lets opponents pick them apart. They're going to make some plays. It's going to happen, but you have to give your defensive backs a chance if you're Notre Dame, and you can get after the quarterback and try to force Taylon Green to get rid of the ball early and try to make him make some mistakes, especially if Leonard Moore and Devontae Smith are out, although I am hopeful that both those guys are going to be ready to go this week. Devontae Smith dressed for the game against Purdue, so I'm pretty confident he's going to be ready to go against Arkansas so long as he doesn't have any setbacks. I haven't heard anything about Leonard Moore, but frankly, I'm just kind of holding out hope. But by the way, before we move to the other side of the ball, did you know that Chris Ash was once the defensive coordinator at Arkansas? It's true. He was there for one season back in 2013. The Razorbacks finished 3-9, and they gave up 30 points per game. Anyway, moving on to Arkansas defense going up against the Notre Dame offense. Big picture here, Travis Williams is their defensive coordinator. He was a really good linebacker for Auburn back in the early 2000s, and he is in his third season as defensive coordinator for the Razorbacks. Based on what I have seen from the Arkansas fan base, they're not too thrilled with Travis Williams as the defensive coordinator, so there you go. Notre Dame fans and Arkansas fans have something in common. They're not too thrilled with their defensive coordinators right now. They were below average defensively last season in Arkansas. They allowed 25 points per game, which was 66th in the country. They were especially bad against the pass, 119th in coverage, according to Pro Football Focus. So they hit the portal hard this offseason, adding 29 transfers on defense. Here's a couple players to know. The main one, number 97, Quincy Rhodes Jr. He's their defensive end, and this guy is an absolute game wrecker and has been all season long. He's 6'6", 276 pounds. He leads the team in sacks with 5, including 2 last week against Memphis. He has 13 quarterback hurries through 4 games and 10 run stops. So he can get after the quarterback, and he's effective at stopping the run as well. Also on the defensive line, Steven Dix Jr., steady veteran, brings a ton of experience. And then at linebacker, number 10, Xavier Sori Jr. is a transfer from Georgia who leads the team in tackles with 29, also has an interception and a forced fumble, but he's also missed 8 tackles already this season, including 4 against Memphis. So he's kind of feast or famine at linebacker. And then in the secondary, cornerback Julian Neal, number 23. I believe he is their best defensive back on the team, has 2 interceptions already this year, 4 pass breakups, and he's a willing tackler for a cornerback, has 22 tackles already. Although he can be beat in coverage. Teams have completed 60% of passes thrown his direction for 150 yards and a touchdown, and teams mostly like to target Connie Walker. He's already allowed 10 receptions for 143 yards and a touchdown as well on just 16 targets. So they have improved when it comes to defending the pass, but not quite enough to be all that scary on that side of the ball. So their biggest strengths as a whole, they're good at creating havoc. They've registered a total of 28 tackles for loss this season. That's 20th in the country, and 10 of those have been sacks. They've also picked off 4 passes and recovered a couple fumbles, so their 6 turnovers gained is 25th in the country, but it's feast or famine, right? They try to create some big plays, but they give up a lot of yards. They give up a lot of touchdowns as well. And their biggest weakness is that they are really bad at stopping the run. Memphis ran for 290 yards against them last week. Arkansas is allowing 4.2 yards per rush. That's 86th in the country. And their 6 explosive run plays allowed is outside of the top 100. They're not very sound in their gap scheme, and they're not very sound at tackling either, especially in the secondary. And as I mentioned, even though their pass defense has improved, it's still not very effective. Ole Miss's backup quarterback looked like a Heisman candidate against them. He completed 72% of his passes and threw for 353 yards. Ole Miss didn't have to run the ball all that much because they were killing them through the air. So even though they didn't run the ball as effectively as Memphis, this defense can get got. They're allowing 6.5 yards per attempt and 11 yards per completion, which is around 75th in the country, and they have been terrible on third down. Teams are converting over 50% on the money downs, which puts Arkansas at 116th in the country on third down conversion. So my keys for the Notre Dame offense, really simple here. Feed Jeremiah Love and feed Jadarian Price. This should be another field day for Notre Dame's running backs. Like I said, Memphis ran all over them. Their top 2 backs ran for 147 and 103 yards respectively. Love is coming off a career high 157 rushing yards against Purdue. And Jadarian Price scored 4 total touchdowns on 10 touches. That, folks, is what you call efficiency. I would be genuinely shocked if we don't see a similar effort from these 2 backs against Arkansas, because not only are they going to be able to get some efficient runs, gaining 4 or 5 yards, but if they can get through to that second level, they are gone. There's nobody in this Arkansas secondary that is going to be able to tackle either one of these guys in the open field. But you can't just run the ball in a shootout, right? You're going to have to capitalize on deep shots through the air. That is my second key for the Notre Dame offense. And considering how effectively Notre Dame ran the ball against Purdue, They only had to throw it 12 times with CJ Carr, but they were an efficient 12. He converted 10 of those passes for 223 yards, highlighted by 2 shot plays. The first one to Malachi Fields to start up the game, and then one later to Jordan Faison on an out and up that CJ Carr checked to at the line of scrimmage. Considering this game is likely going to be a shootout, the offense is going to have to put up a lot of points, and they're going to have to do it quickly in some instances, particularly at the end of the half. Notre Dame has been awful in the middle 8 this year. Hopefully that changes this week, especially considering we know how much of an emphasis Marcus Freeman puts on the middle 8. Another thing to consider here, when you're playing on the road, right, it's going to be a hostile environment. The best way to silence a rowdy crowd is to hit them with explosive plays. You know how I know that? Because I was in the crowd in South Bend when Notre Dame was taking on Texas A&M, and every single time the Aggies had an explosive play, of which there were many, it felt like a gut punch in the entire crowd over and over again. CJ Carr has been getting better week to week. He's been airing it out. He's been a lot better at throwing the ball downfield. And this could be the week where everyone around the country starts to take notice of CJ Carr. All right, coming up next, Notre Dame has scored a touchdown on special teams in back-to-back weeks. Can they make it 3 in a row against the Razorbacks? We're going to cover that. Plus, I'll reveal my predictions right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. All right, here is my pick for this week. Thursday Night Football did not hit last week. I took the Bills against the Dolphins. They won the game, but they did not cover the week before. We did hit, taking the Packers against the Commanders. This week, the game is gross. I mean, Cardinals, Seahawks, Thursday Night Football, it's kind of the Al Michaels special, right? Well, I'm going to take the Cardinals plus 1.5 at home against the Seahawks. Don't have a lot of groundbreaking analysis for you. That's just the side that I'm leaning in this one. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If you're new to the program, first off, let me say welcome. We've got a lot of new viewers and listeners these days, and I'm really excited about that. But one thing you should know about this show and game previews is that we never skip the third phase of the game. That is special teams. So let's talk about it. Arkansas on special teams. They've got a freshman kicker, Scott Starzik. He is 2 of 4 on field goal attempts on the year. He missed 2 kicks against Ole Miss, which proved to be pretty crucial considering they lost by 6 points. But they weren't chip shots. He missed one from 49 yards out and another from 51, and it was early on in the game, so it was not like the game was decided on a missed field goal. But he's got a leg. He connected on a 53-yarder in the season opener, and we might see 2 freshman kickers going at it in this one because Notre Dame is still dealing with an injured Noah Burnett. He has a right hip injury. I don't think he's going to be able to go in this one, so more on him in a second. But Arkansas also has a good punter, Devin Bale. They are 15th in the country in net punting. They don't punt often, but when they do, they can flip the field in a big way. They have not been particularly dynamic in the return game. Running back Rodney Hill is their kick returner. He's averaging about 25 yards per return. And then wide receiver Cameron Shanks returns punts. He hasn't done a whole lot back there either. Haven't really seen anything from them trying to be aggressive on special teams or anything like that. But for Notre Dame, that is my number one key on special teams, is continue to be aggressive. Even though it was very frustrating to see Purdue fake a punt and run for a first down, I like that the Irish continue to be aggressive and put pressure on opposing punters. Marcus Freeman actually told special teams to take that personally. Notre Dame's social media team, they released that clip where Marcus Freeman was talking to the team during the delay, and he called out special teams and put them on notice because of the fake punt. And then Jadarian Price answered with a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. I do not think it will be his last kickoff return touchdown for the Irish this year. Hell, he almost broke one earlier in the game, and every time he gets the ball back there, I'm pretty convinced he's going to break it. I also think Jordan Faison is close to breaking off a punt return as well. He's had a couple solid returns. He's just so much stronger this year. He's so much better at breaking tackles. Like, he was always elusive. He was always slippery. Like, he's a great athlete, but it felt like just a little bit of contact would force him to go down. I think he's a different player this year. Credit to him and all the work that he put in over the offseason. I think he's going to return a punt for a touchdown this season. I also think that this game would be a great opportunity to run some kind of fake. right? Because last year, by the end of the year, Notre Dame's fake punts and their fake field goals, it was like a staple of the team, right? To the point where everyone saw it coming in the national championship game when Steve Angeli threw an out route to Jordan Faison. It didn't work, but Faison should have caught it, and Ohio State definitely saw it coming. Well, in this game, I could see Notre Dame trying to run a fake field goal to try to, basically steal another possession because points are going to be aplenty in this one. So it's going to be a lot about possessions, trying to get more than your opponent. And if you're on a fourth down and you can get the first down by running a fake, whether it's a fake field goal or fake punt, I could definitely see Notre Dame doing that in this game. And I'd also like to see them avoid using their kicker because, as I mentioned, Eric Schmidt is probably going to be kicking for Noah Burnett in this one. And even though Schmidt converted on 8 of 8 extra points in his college debut, filling in for Burnett, he hooked his first field goal attempt so bad, I was worried it might kill someone in the crowd, and I'm not going to feel much more confident with him kicking in a hostile road environment. So I hope Notre Dame doesn't have to use him very often in this game, and if they do have to use him, maybe that's an opportunity to run a fake, which leads me to my predictions. I'm not going to lie. I haven't felt super great about one game all season. I haven't been super confident in any one of my picks. Yeah, I picked Notre Dame to win each game, but I wasn't beaming with confidence in any of those. Part of that has to do with the schedule, right? Notre Dame has played one of the toughest schedules in the country up to this point. They started off on the road against a very good Miami team in a place that Notre Dame traditionally has not had a whole lot of success. And then I was worried about Texas A&M coming into town and just Mike Elko losing 2 heartbreakers to Notre Dame and feeling like he might be due. And I'm not trying to give myself a cop-out. I picked Notre Dame to win every single game. I'm just saying I wasn't super confident in my selections. And even though I knew they were going to beat Purdue, I just wasn't super hopeful about what they would put out there on the field. The offense turned out to exceed my expectations, and the defense kind of met them. They were terrible once again. So why would I feel differently about this game going on the road against a talented SEC team and on paper, one that matches up pretty well with Notre Dame? They have an extremely talented, high-powered offense, and Notre Dame's defense has been Swiss cheese through the first 3 games. I'm not really sure why I feel so confident, but I feel more confident about this game than I have all season long. And to be clear, I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any means. I've already said multiple times, I expect this to be a shootout. Arkansas certainly has the talent on offense to beat Notre Dame. And in a game like this, a couple bad possessions on offense could ultimately be the difference. But consider this. Notre Dame has put up 99 points on offense, 113 total if you include the block punt for a touchdown and also Jadarian Price's kickoff return for a touchdown in the last 9 quarters of football. They put up 17 points in the fourth quarter against Miami. They put 33 on Texas A&M, and then they put 49 against Purdue. They can beat you on the ground, and for the first time in a long time, Notre Dame can beat you through the air just as easily with C.J. Carr at quarterback and also a very improved wide receiving core. Arkansas's defense got shredded by a backup quarterback at Ole Miss, and they let Memphis run for 290 yards against them. And I have respect for Memphis. They're one of the best group of 6 teams in the country, but it's Memphis, and they do not have the talent at running back or anywhere close to what Notre Dame has. So I'm not worried about Notre Dame's offense whatsoever. And Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, didn't seem too concerned at his press conference on Tuesday night either. His demeanor was basically radiating all kinds of confidence. I think he is thrilled to have a group that can throw, that can run, that can do all the different things that he likes to do because he wants to push the ball downfield. That is what they made a living at doing when he was at LSU, and he had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. back when he was still good and not afraid of contact, and also Jane Daniels throwing the football around. So Notre Dame's offense is in a great place. This is not a situation we've been super accustomed to seeing at Notre Dame in recent years where the offense is going to be able to put up a bunch of points, but the offense hasn't been the issue for Notre Dame. Now has it? It has been Chris Ash's defense. And I'm not expecting this unit to turn into the 2024 defense, but I think this will be the first game we see a legitimate step forward from that side of the ball when the game is still in balance. After Purdue, Marcus Freeman's frustration boiled over, and he admitted that he had a very uncomfortable meeting with the defensive staff on Sunday. And I'm damn near praying that Marcus Freeman said, enough is enough, and we're going back to what works for this group. And what has worked for the Notre Dame defense in recent years? Exotic pressures, showing different looks, playing man coverage, getting after the quarterback. If you do that enough, you might give up some chunk plays, yes, but you've been giving those up anyway, rushing 4. So why not try and create some havoc and force Taylon Green into some turnovers and rattle his confidence a little bit? I'm hopeful that Leonard Moore and Devontae Smith are going to be able to go in this one, and that is going to provide a huge boost to the secondary. And with those guys in the lineup, you can be a little bit more aggressive in the front 7. And there's going to be moments in this game, no doubt, where you're going to want to pull your hair out, but the defense is going to get a couple stops and force a timely turnover that will ultimately be the difference. I like the Irish 42-31. I think the offense lights it up again, and the defense does just enough. A couple more predictions on the way out here. 4 combined touchdowns between Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. I think they're going to each surpass 100 rushing yards for the first time. Jaden Greathouse is going to find the end zone as well for the first time this season. I know he's been MIA lately, but the Arkansas defense is going to forget about him in the worst moment, and he's going to score a touchdown. And then defensively, I think Boubacar Traore is going to have a big game. He played really well against Purdue, forced a fumble on the quarterback that unfortunately just bounced right into the hands of a Purdue offensive player with like a 5-yard gain. So that was just bad luck. But I really loved what I saw from him in this game. Bryce Young had his first sack of the season as well. So we started to see some life on the Notre Dame defense. KVA has been playing really well in addition to those guys I just mentioned. And all in all, this is going to be one of those games that feels like a roller coaster in the moment, but it will be one that we love to look back on when it's all said and done. And then, guess what? We're going to be able to ride the high for the rest of the Saturday, watch about 10 more hours of ball, drink some ice-cold adult beverages, and for the first time all season, Notre Dame fans will get to enjoy a full Saturday of college football with a fun win to look back on with the Irish, and then you can enjoy all the great slate of games coming your way. All right, that'll do it for me today. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first watch or listen of the day. Before you head out, make sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow along wherever you get your podcasts. Like the video, rate and review the podcast. You know the drill. A couple quick programming notes for you on the way out. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow morning with the host of Locked On Razorbacks, John Neighbors, for a crossover episode. Then later that evening, I'm going to be going live at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Locked On Irish YouTube channel for another Irish squad show featuring Notre Dame legends Reggie Brooks and Alan Pinkett, as well as ABC 57 kickoff host Allison Hayes. And then on Friday, we got another mailbag. So get your questions in. Drop in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on X at Locked On Irish or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. So much great content coming your way. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you stay subscribed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.